Now, I don't know what's going on now. Hold up. Now it's showing up. Oh my god. Okay. I think I figured it out. I think I figured it out. Okay, well, I figured it out. Okay. As I'm live tweeting. Okay. Okay, I am glad. Okay, I'm just glad I'm able to figure this out. Okay. Oh. Okay. Okay. Hi, Fall. Okay, so I kind of figured it out. So apparently since I guess it's not I'm not subscribed or whatever. I can't dual stream. It's either one or the other. It's either one or the other, unless I get the subscription service. And I'm just like, really? I gotta pay for it? I guess I could do some things on YouTube, I guess. Ugh. I wonder, can I like? Oh my god, I probably would. So I'm probably, honestly, if I gotta like subscribe. Hi, Silence! Okay. Yes! On my reading corner, I won't have my glasses on. So it's like, so it'd be once a week. Honestly, I'm probably gonna be switching to OBS. Since a lot of people seem to use it, I just don't know how to, I just have to figure it out. So I would be able to stream on here and on YouTube. Hi, Haro. Yeah, I heard. Yeah, I heard it's just a lot of like more technical. So as for Streamlabs is like user friendly, but you gotta pay for a subscription service to multi-stream, which sucks. So I'm just like, I'm not paying that. Yeah, I'm gonna probably mess around with it for a while. Anyways. Alrighty. I Okay. Okay, that's not. Ooh. Okay. Now let's see. Okay, how's the volume for you guys? Okay, how about this? I could lower it a bit more, actually. Well, I'm gonna put up full volume and then go from there. Think I can get it. Now it's a bit too low. Okay, I think I got, okay. Is it good? I think it's a good volume. All right, thank you. Thank you for the input. But also, I will be right back. Gotta do something. Okay. Ooh, God, her eyes. Alrighty. Okay. So, where we left off last time, so Asakawa invited Ryuji over. And Ryuji is, I don't want to say a serial rapist, but he's done it to 3 women. And he accounted the first time he did it. And Asakawa is just like, I should probably reconsider this. She's probably reconsidered it like the first time, but you know. And he has 6 days to live so far. As for Ryuji, 7. So, let's get to it. October 13th, Sunday. Not Sunday, Saturday. I can't read. Okay. Asakawa had thought of taking the week off work, but then decided that using the company's information system to the full would give him a better chance of clearing up the mysteries of the videotape than holding up in his apartment pointlessly cowering. As a result, he went into work, even though it was a Saturday. Went into work, but he knew full well that he wouldn't get any actual work done. He figured the best policy would be to confess everything to his editor and ask that he be temporarily taken off his assignments. Nothing would help more than enlisting his editor's cooperation. The problem was whether or not his editor would believe his story. He'd probably bring up the previous incident yet again and snort. Even though he had the video's proof, if Oguri started out by denying everything, he'd have all sorts of other arguments arrayed to support his view. Yeah, I know. Being able to read would be important. I was off by a day. He'd skewer all sorts of things his way to convince himself he was right. Still, it would be interesting, Asakawa thought. He'd brought the video in his briefcase just in case. How would Oguri react if he showed it to him? More to the point, though, would he even give it a chance? Last night he'd stayed up late explaining the whole sequence of events to Yoshino, and he'd believed. And then, as if to prove it, he'd said he'd absolutely didn't want to see the video. Please don't show it to him. In exchange, he tried to cooperate however he could. Of course, in Yoshino's case, there was a firm foundation for that belief. When Haruko Tsuji and Takehiko Nomi corpses had been discovered in a car by a prefectural road in Ashina, Yoshino had rushed to the scene and felt the atmosphere there. The stifling atmosphere that had the investigators convinced that only something monstrous could have done this. But that kept them from saying so. If Yoshino hadn't actually been there himself, he probably wouldn't have accepted Asakawa's story quite so easily. In any case, what Asakawa had on his hands was a bomb. If he flashed it in front of Oguri's eyes threateningly, it ought to have some effect. Asakawa was tempted to use it out of curiosity, if for nothing else. Oguri's customary mocking smile had been wiped from his face. Both elbows were planted on his desk, and his eyes moved relentlessly as he went over Asakawa's story once again with a fine-toothed comb. Four young people almost certainly watched a particular video together at Villa Law Cabin on the 9th of August 29th, and exactly a week later, just as the video had predicted, they died under mysterious circumstances. Subsequently, the video had caught the eye of the cabin manager, who had brought it into the office where it calmly waited until Asakawa discovered it. Asakawa had then watched the damn thing, and now he was going to die in 5 days? Was he supposed to believe that? And yet, those 4 deaths were an indisputable fact. How could he explain them? What was the logic thread to connect all this? Asakawa's expression as he stood looking down at Oguri had an air of superiority that was rare for him. He knew from experience just what Oguri was thinking right about now. Asakawa waited until he thought Oguri's thought process would have reached a dead end, and then extracted the videotape from his briefcase. He did it with an exaggerated dignity, theatrically as if laying down a royal flush. Would you like to take a look at it? You're quite welcome to. It's the fact that he was just like, do it, you won't, type shit. Yeah, the try me. Try me. Okay. If you want to watch it, you could just press play. It's that easy. Come on, you can do it. Just laugh like you always do and say how stupid it is and shove it in the video deck. Do it. Give it a shot. Oguri's mind was trying to issue the command to his body. Stop being such an idiot and watch it. If you watch it, doesn't it show that you don't believe Asakawa? Which means, right. Think about it now. It means if you refuse to watch it, you must believe this cock and bull story. So watch it already. You believe in modern science, don't you? You're not a kid afraid of ghosts. In fact, Oguri was 99% sure that he didn't believe Asakawa. But still, way back in the corner of his mind, there was that what if. What if it were true? Maybe there was some niche in this world that modern science couldn't reach yet. And as long as there was the risk, no matter how hard his mind worked, his body was going to refuse. So Oguri sat in his chair and didn't move. He couldn't move. It didn't matter what his mind understood. His body wasn't listening to his mind. Sorry about that. If you heard that. My dog hurt himself. Okay, what is it? What is it? Where did I... Yeah, he's okay. I don't know if it was. I don't know if my mic caught it. Probably. It probably did. But he's okay. No, that was my dog. Yeah, it was a yelp. If you okay, so it did get picked up, but he's fine. He's fine. He's okay. Okay. No, where was I? Where was I? Okay. Okay. His body wasn't listening to his mind. As long as there was a possibility of danger, his body would keep loyally activating his instincts for self-preservation. Oguri raised his head and said in a parched voice, "So what is it you want from me?" Asakawa knew he had won. "I'd like you to relieve me of my assignments. I want to make a thorough investigation of this video. Please. I think you realize my life is on the line here." Oguri shut his eyes tightly. "Are you going to get an article out of it?" "Well, regardless of how I may appear to you, I'm still a reporter. I'll write down my findings so everything isn't buried with Ryuji Takayama and myself. Of course, whether or not to print them is something I'll leave up to you." Oguri gave two decisive nods. "Well, it can't hurt. I guess I'll have a cub take your feature interview." Asakawa bowed slightly. He went to return the video to his briefcase. He couldn't resist the temptation to have a little more fun. He preferred the tape to Oguri once again, saying, "You believe me, don't you?" Oguri gave a long sigh and shook his head. It wasn't that he believed or disbelieved. He just felt a tinge of uneasiness. Yeah, that was it. "I feel the same way," were Asakawa's parting words. Oguri watched him walk out and told himself that if Asakawa was still alive after October 18th, then he'd watch the video with his own eyes. But even then, maybe his body wouldn't let him. That what if didn't feel like it was ever going to go away. In the reference room, Asakawa stacked 3 thick volumes on the table. Volcanoes of Japan, Volcanic Archipelago, and Active Volcanoes of the World. Figuring that the volcano in the video was probably in Japan, he started with volcanoes in Japan. He looked at the color photos at the beginning of the book. Mountains belching white smoke and steam rose gallantly into the sky. Sides covered with brownish black lava rock. Bright red molten rocks spewing into the night sky from craters whose black edges melted into the darkness. He thought of the Big Bang. He turned the pages, comparing these scenes to the ones seared into his brain. Mount Aso, Mount Asama, Showa Shinzan, Sakurajima. It didn't take as long to locate as he feared. After all, Mount Mihara on Ozu Oshima Island, part of the same chain of volcanoes that included Mount Fuji, is one of Japan's most famous active volcanoes. Mount Mihara? Muttered Asakawa. The two-page spread for Mount Mihara had 2 aerial shots and 1 photo taken from a nearby hilltop. Asakawa recalled the image of the volcano. Asakawa recalled the image of the video and tried to imagine it from various angles, comparing it to these photos. There's a definite similarity. From a perspective at the foot of the mountain, the peak seemed gently sloped. But from the air, one could see a circular rim surrounding the caldera. In the center of which was a mound, which was the mouth of the volcano. The photo taken from a nearby hilltop especially resembled the scene in the video. The color and contours of the mountainside were almost the same. But he needed to confirm it instead of just relying on his memory. Asakawa made a copy of the photos of Mount Mihara along with 2 or 3 other candidates. Asakawa spent the afternoon on the phone. He called people who had used Cabin before in the last 6 months. He could have been better off meeting them face to face and gauging their reactions. But he simply didn't have that kind of time. It was tough to spot a lie just from the voice on a telephone. Asakawa pricked up his ears, determined to catch the slightest crack. There were 16 parties he needed to check out. The low number was due to the fact that the cabin had been equipped with individual video decks when the Villa Log Cabin opened in April. A major regional hotel was torn down over the summer, and it was decided to transfer the large number of VCRs it no longer needed to the Villa Log Cabin. That was in mid-July. The decks had been installed and the tape library assembled by the end of that month, just in time for the summer vacation season. As a result, the brochure didn't mention that each room had its own video equipment. Most guests had been surprised to see the VCR when they arrived and thought of it as nothing more than a way to kill time on a rainy day. Almost nobody had expressly brought a tape for the purpose of recording something. Of course, that was if he believed the voices on the phone. So who had brought the tape in question? Who had made it? Asakawa was desperate not to overlook anything. He chipped away at people's responses time and again, but not once did anybody seem like they were hiding something. Of the 16 guests he called, 3 had come to play golf and hadn't even noticed the VCR. 7 had noticed it but hadn't touched it. 5 had come to play tennis but had been rained out, and with nothing else to do, had watched videos. Classic films mostly, probably old favorites. The last group, a family of 4, named Kaneko from Yokohama, had brought a tape so they could record something on another channel while watching a historical mini-series. Asakawa put down the receiver and cast an eye over the data he had collected concerning the 16 group of guests. Only one looked pertinent. Mr. and Mrs. Kaneko and their 2 grade school-aged kids. They stayed in B4 twice last summer. The first time had been the night of Friday, August 10th, and the second time they had stayed 2 nights, Saturday and Sunday. August 25th and 26th. The second time was 3 days before the 4 victims had been there. Nobody had stayed there on the Monday or Tuesday following the Kaneko stay. The 4 teenagers were the very next people to use the room. Not only that, the Kaneko's 6th grade son had brought a tape from home to record a show. The boy was a faithful fan of a certain comedy series broadcast every Saturday at 8, but his parents, of course, controlled the TV, and every Sunday at 8, they had a habit of watching the annual historical miniseries on NHK, the public televised network. There was only one television in the cabin, but knowing he had a VCR, the boy had brought a tape, thinking to record his show and watch it later. But while he was recording, a friend came over to tell him that the rain had let up. He and his younger sister ran off to play tennis. His parents finished the program and turned off the television, forgetting that the VCR was still recording. Poor boy, he just wanted to watch his show. The children ran around on the courts until almost 10. They came home all tuckered out and went straight to bed. They too had completely forgotten about the tape. The next day, when they were almost home, the kid suddenly remembered he had left the tape in the VCR and shouted to his father, who was driving, to go back. This turned into quite an argument. But eventually, the boy gave up. He was still whimpering when they got home. Aww. Poor kid. I feel bad for him. Okay. I lost my place again. Okay. Asakawa took out the videotape and stood it on his desk where the label would have been stuck. The words Fujitex VHS T120 Super AV glinted in silver. Asakawa redialed the Kaneko's number. Hi, sorry to keep calling you like this. It's Asakawa again from the Daily News. There was a pause, and the same voice he had spoken to before had said yes. It was Mrs. Kaneko. You mentioned that your son left behind a tape. Do you happen to know what brand it was? Well, now, let me see, she replied, trying not to laugh. He heard noises in the background. My son's just gotten home. I'll ask him. Poor kid. Asakawa waited. There was no way the kid remembered. He says he doesn't know, but we only use cheap brands, the kind you buy in packs of 3. He wasn't surprised. Who really paid attention to that brand of tape they used every time they wanted to record something? Then Asakawa had an idea. Hold on. Where's the case for this tape? Videotapes are always sold in cardboard cases. I mean, then there's plastic too. Nobody just throws them away. At least, Asakawa himself had never thrown away a tape case, neither for an audio cassette or videotape. Does your family store your videotapes in their cases? Yes, of course. Look, I'm very sorry, but could you please check to see if you have an empty case lying around? Huh? She asked vacantly. Even if she understood his question, she couldn't guess what he was getting at, and it made her slow on and it made her slow on the uptake. Please, someone's life may depend on it. Housewives were susceptible to the matter of life and death ploy. Whenever he needed to save time and get one moving, he found that the phrase had just the right impact. But this time, he wasn't lying. Just a moment, please. Just as he expected, her tone changed. There was quite a long pause after she set down the receiver. If the case had been left at the villa log cabin along with the tape, then it must have been thrown away by the manager. But if not, then there was a good chance that Kaneko still had it. The voice returned. An empty case, right? That's right. I found two. Alright, now the manufacturer's name and the type of tape should be printed on the case. Let's see. One says Panavision T120. The other is a Fujitex VHS T120 Super AV. The exact same name as in the videotape he held in his hand. Since Fujitex had sold countless numbers of these tapes, this was hardly definitive proof. But at least he'd taken a step forward. That much was certain. This demon tape had originally been brought there by a 6th grade boy. It was probably safe to conclude Asakawa thanked the woman and hung up the phone. Starting at 8 o'clock on the night of Sunday, August 26th, the video deck in B4 is left recording. The Kaneko family forgets the tape and goes home. Then come in 4 young people in question. It's rainy that day too. Thinking to watch a movie, they go to use the video deck, only to find a tape already inside. Innocently, they watch it. They see incomprehensible, eerie things. Then, the threat at the end. Cursing the evil weather, they think up a cool bit of mischief. Erasing the section that tells how to escape certain death. They leave the video there to frighten the next guests. Of course, they hadn't believed what they'd seen. If they had, they wouldn't have been able to carry out their prank. He wondered if they remembered the tape at the moment of their deaths. Maybe there hadn't been any time for that before the angel of death carried them off. Asakawa shivered. It wasn't just them. Unless he could find a way to avoid dying in 5 days, he'd end up just like them. Then he'd know exactly how they felt when they died. But if the boy had been recording a TV show, then where had those images come from? All along, Asakawa had thought that someone had shot them with a video camera, but then brought the tape there. But the tape had been set to record from the television, meaning that somehow these incredible scenes had infiltrated over the airwaves. He would never have dreamed it. The airwaves had been hijacked. Asakawa recalled what had happened last year at election time, when, after NHK had signed off for the night, an illicit broadcast had appeared on the same channel, slandering one of the candidates. The airwaves had been hijacked. That was the only thing that fit. He was faced with the possibility that on the evening of August 26th, these images had been riding the airwaves in the South Hakone region, and that this tape had picked them up purely by chance. If that was true, then there must be a record of it. Asakawa realized he needed to contact the local bureau and find out some facts. Honestly, I was not expecting that shit. I would have never expected the airwaves to get hijacked. Not at all. Honestly, that's pure genius. Hijacking the airwaves? Hi, Haru. Luna, hi. Thank you. Thank you for the raid. I'm reading The Ring, if anybody's curious. And we just found out the the so we found out that the television, like the broadcasting station, got hijacked. Would have never expected that, not gonna lie. Ooh, girl. Alright, chapter 4. It was 10 when Asakawa got home. As soon as he entered the apartment, he softly opened the bedroom door and checked the sleeping faces of his wife and daughter. No matter how tired he was when he got home, he always did this. There was a note on the dining room table. Mr. Takayama called. Asakawa had been trying to call Ryuji all day long, but he hadn't been able to catch him home. He was probably out and about in his own investigations. Maybe he has something, though Asakawa had as he dialed. He let it ring 10 times, no answer. Ryuji lived alone in his East Nakano apartment. He wasn't home yet. Asakawa took a quick shower, opened a beer, and tried calling again. Still not home. He switched to whiskey on the rocks. He'd never be able to get a good night's sleep without alcohol. Tall and slender, Asakawa had never in his life had an illness worth a name. To think that this was how he was sentenced to die. Part of him still felt it was a dream. That he'd reached 10 o'clock on October 18th, without having understood the video or figured out the charm. But in the end, nothing would happen, and the day would stretch out before him as they always had. Oguri would wear a mocking expression and expound on the foolishness of believing in superstitions, while Ryuji would laugh and say, "We just don't understand how the world works." And his wife and daughter would greet their daddy with these same sleeping faces. Even a passenger on an airplane falling from the sky can't shake the hope that he'd be the one to survive. Ooh. He drained his third glass of whiskey and dialed Ryuji's number a third time. If he didn't answer this time, Asakawa was going to give up for the night. He heard 7 rings, then a click as someone picked up the receiver. What the hell have you been doing all this time? He shouted, without even checking to see who he was talking to. Thinking he was addressing Ryuji, allowed his anger he allowed his anger full vent, which only served to emphasize the strangeness of the relationship. Even with his friends, Asakawa always maintained a certain distance and carefully controlled his attitude. But he had no qualms about calling Ryuji every name in the book, and yet he never once thought of Ryuji as a truly close friend. But surprisingly, the voice that answered wasn't Ryuji's. Hello? Excuse me? It was a woman, startled from having been yelled at out of nowhere. Oh, sorry, wrong number. Asakawa started to hang up. Are you calling for Professor Takayama? Well, yes, as a matter of fact, I am. He's not back yet. Asakawa couldn't help but wonder who this young, attractive voice belonged to. He figured it was a safe bet she wasn't a relative since she called him Professor. A lover? Couldn't be. What girl in her right mind would fall for Ryuji? I see. My name is Asakawa. When Professor Takayama returns, I'll have him call you. That's Mr. Asakawa, right? Even after he had replaced the receiver, the woman's soft voice continued to ring pleasantly in his ears. Uh-oh, that was her. Futons were usually only used in Japanese-style rooms, with tatami mat floors. The bedroom was carpeted and had originally had a Western-style bed in it, but when Yoko was born, they took it out. They couldn't have a baby sleeping on a bed, but the room was too small for a crib and a bed. So they were forced to get rid of their double bed and switch to futons, rolling them up every morning and spreading them out again every night. They laid 2 futons side by side and 3 of them slept together. Now Asakawa crawled into the open space on the futons, and the 3 of them went to bed at the same time. They always slept in the same positions, but Shizu and Yoko were restless sleepers, so when they went to bed before Asakawa, it was less than an hour before they had rolled around and sprawled all over. As a result, Asakawa ended up having to fit himself into whatever space was left. Me. Take up the whole bed. If he was gone, how long would it take for the space to be filled? Asakawa wondered. It wasn't that he was worried about Shizu remarrying necessarily. It was just that some people were never able to fill the space left behind by the loss of a spouse. 3 years? 3 years would be about right. Shizu would move back home and let her parents take care of the baby while she went to work. Asakawa forced himself to imagine her face shining with as much vitality as could be expected. He wanted her to be strong. He couldn't stand to imagine the kind of hell his wife and child would have to go through with him gone. Asakawa had met Shizu 5 years ago. He had just been transferred back to the main Tokyo office from the Chiba bureau. She was working in a travel agency connected with the Daily News. With the Daily News conglomerate. She worked on the 3rd floor. He worked on the 7th. And they somehow saw each other on the elevator, but that was the extent of it until one day when he'd gone to the travel agency to pick up some tickets. He was traveling for a story, and as the person handling his arrangements wasn't in, Shizu had taken care of him. She was just 25 and loved to travel, and her gaze told how much she envied Asakawa being able to go all over the country on assignments. In that gaze, he also saw a reflection of the first girl he'd ever loved. Now that they knew each other's names, they started to make small talk when they ran into each other's on the elevator, and their relationship rapidly deepened. 2 years later, they married, after an easy courtship with no objections from either set of parents. About 6 months before their wedding, they had bought the 3-room condo in Kita, Shinagawa. Their parents had helped with the down payment. It wasn't that they'd anticipated this spike in land value and had therefore rushed to buy even before the wedding. It was simply that they wanted to get the mortgage paid off as quickly as possible. But if they hadn't bought when they did, they might never be able to afford to live in the city like this. Within a year, their condo tripled in value, and their monthly mortgage payments were less than half of what they would have been paying to rent. Damn. That just sucks. They were constantly complaining that the place was too small, but in truth, it constituted quite an asset for the couple. Now Asakawa was glad he had something to leave them. If Shizu used his life insurance to pay off the mortgage, then the condo would belong to her and Yoko free and clear. I think my policy pays 20 million yen, but I'd better check just to be sure. His mind was clouded, but he mentally divided up the money in different ways, telling himself that he must write down any financial advice that might occur to him. He wondered how they'd mule his death. Death by illness? Accident? Homicide? In any case, I'd better reread my insurance policy. Every night for the past 3 days, he had gone to bed in a pessimistic mood. He pondered how to influence a world he would have disappeared from and thought about leaving a sort of last testament. October 14th, Sunday. The next morning, Sunday, Asakawa dialed Ryuji's number as soon as he woke up. Yeah? Answered Ryuji, sounding for all the world like he'd just woken up. Asakawa immediately remembered his frustration of the night before and barked at the receiver. Where were you last night? Huh? Oh. Asakawa? You were supposed to call, weren't you? Oh, yeah, I was drunk. College girls these days sure can drink. Sure can do other stuff too, if you know what I mean. Woo! I'm exhausted. Asakawa was momentarily at a loss. It was like the past 3 days were just a dream. He felt foolish for having taken everything so seriously. Well, I'm on my way over. Wait for me, said Asakawa, hanging up the phone. To get to Ryuji's place, Asakawa rode the train to East Nakano and then walked for 10 minutes in the direction of Kami Ochiai? I don't know. I don't really speak Japanese. As he walked, Asakawa reflected hopefully that even though Ryuji had been out drinking the night before, he was still Ryuji. Surely he'd found something. Maybe he'd even solved the riddle. And he'd gone out drinking and carousing to celebrate. The closer he drew to Ryuji's apartment, the more upbeat he became, and he began to walk faster. Asakawa's emotions were wearing him out, bouncing back and forth between fear and hope, pessimism and optimism. Hi, Jay. How are you?
Why is the rum always gone?
I knew you were gonna do it, so I was preemptively drinking. Ooh, girl. Yeah. Well, just sit back. Also, sorry if you hear me munching. A hot Cheetos. Okay, I know. Ryuji opened the door in his pajamas. Unkempt and unshaven, he obviously had gotten out of bed. Why the O? Masakawa couldn't take his shoes off fast enough. He was still in the entryway when he asked, "Have you learned anything?" "No, not really, but come in," said Ryuji, scratching his head vigorously. His eyes were unfocused, and Asakawa knew at a glance that his brain cells weren't awake yet. "Come on, wake up. Drink some coffee or something." Feeling like his hopes have been betrayed, Asakawa put the kettle on the stove with a loud clatter. Suddenly, he was obsessed with time. 2 men sat cross-legged on the floor in the front room. Books were stacked all along one wall. "So tell me what you've turned up," said Ryuji, jiggling his knee. There was no time to waste. Asakawa collected everything he'd learned the day before and laid it out chronologically. First, he informed Ryuji that the video had been recorded from the television in the cabin beginning at 8 p.m. on August 26th. "Really?" Ryuji looked surprised. He too had assumed it had been made on a video camera and then brought in later. "Now that's interesting. But if the airways were hijacked, as you say, there should be others who saw the same thing." "Well, I called our bureau in Atami and Mishima and asked about that, but they said they hadn't received any reports of suspicious transmissions flying around South Hakone on the night of August 26th. I see. Ryuji folded his arms and thought for a while. Two possibilities come to mind. First, everybody who saw the transmission is dead. But hold on. When it was broadcast, the charm should have been intact. So, and anyway, the local papers haven't picked up anything, right? Right, I've already checked that out. You mean whether or not there were any other victims, right? There weren't. None at all. If it was broadcast, then other people should have seen it, but there haven't been any other victims. Not even any rumors. But remember when AIDS started to appear in the civilized world? At first, doctors in America had no idea what was going on. All they knew was that they were seeing people die from symptoms they never encountered before. All they had was suspicion of some strange disease. They only started calling it AIDS 2 years after it appeared. That kind of thing happens. The mountainous valleys west of the Tama Ridge only contained a few scattered farmhouses on the lower reaches of the Atami-Kanami Highway. If you gazed south, all you could see was South Hakone Pacific Land, isolated in its dreamy alpine meadows. Was something invisible at work in that land? Maybe lots of people were dying suddenly, but it just hadn't made it into the news yet. It wasn't just AIDS, Kawasaki disease. First discovered in Japan, had been around for 10 years before it officially recognized as a new disease. It was still only a month and a half since the phantom broadcast had been accidentally caught on videotape. It was quite possible that the syndrome hadn't yet been recognized. If Asakawa hadn't discovered the common factor in 4 deaths, if his niece hadn't been among them, this illness would probably still be sleeping underground. That was even scarier. It usually took hundreds, thousands of deaths before something was officially recognized as a disease. But we don't have time to go door to door down there talking to residents. But, Ryuji, you mentioned a second possibility. Right. Second, the only people who saw it are us and the 4 young people. Hey, do you think the grade school brat who recorded this knew the broadcast frequencies are different from region to region? What they're showing on Channel 4 in Tokyo might be broadcasted on a completely different channel out in the country. A dumb kid wouldn't know that. Maybe he set it to record according to the channel he watches in Tokyo. What are you getting at? Think about it. Do people like us who live in Tokyo ever turn to Channel 2? It's not used here. Aha! So the boy had set the VCR to a channel a local would never have used. Since they were recording while watching something else, he hadn't actually seen what was being recorded. In any event, with the population so sparse in those mountains, there couldn't be too many viewers in the first place. Either way, the real question is, where did the broadcast originate from? It sounded so simple when Ryuji said it, but only an organized scientific investigation will be able to determine the transmission's point of origin. Wait a minute. We're not even sure your basic premise is right. It's only a guess that the boy accidentally recorded phantom airwaves. I know that, but if you wait for 100% proof before proceeding, we'll never get anywhere. This is our only lead. Airwaves. Asakawa's knowledge of science was paltry. He didn't even know what airwaves were. He'd have to start his investigation there. There was nothing to do but check it out. The broadcast's point of origin. That meant he'd have to go back there. After today, there was only 4 days left. The next question was, who had erased the charm? they allowed that the tape had been recorded on site, it couldn't have been anybody but the 4 victims. Asakawa had checked with the TV network and found out when the young storyteller, Shinraku Sanyute, had been guesting the night show. They'd been right. The answer that came back was August 29th. It was almost certain that the 4 young people had erased the charm. Asakawa took several photocopies from his briefcase. They were photographs of Mount Mihara on Izu Oshima Island. What do you think? He asked, showing them to Ryuji. Mount Mihara, eh? I say this is definitely the one. How can you be sure? What? Okay, fine. Okay. Yesterday afternoon, I asked an ethnologist at the university about Granny's dialect. He said it wasn't used much anymore, but that it was probably one found in Izu Oshima. In fact, it contained features traceable to the Sashi-Kiji region on the southern tip of the island. He's pretty cautious, so he wouldn't swear that was it. But combined with this photo, I think we're safe to assume the dialect is Izu Oshima's and the mountain is Mount Mihara. By the way, did you do any research into Mount Mihara's eruptions? Aw, thank you, Jay. Of course. Since the war, and I think we're probably okay in limiting ourselves to eruptions since the war, considering development in film technology, this seemed a safe assumption. Right. Now, are you with me? Since the war, Mount Mihara has erupted 4 times. The first time was in 1950-1951. The second was in 57. The third was in 74. The fourth time, I'm sure we both remember well, the autumn of 1986. The 57 eruption produced a new crater. 1 person died and 53 were injured. Considering when video cameras came out, I'd guess we're looking at the 86 eruption, but I don't think we can be sure yet. At this point, Ryuji seemed to remember something and started rummaging around in his bag. He pulled out a slip of paper. Oh yes, evidently this is what she's saying. The gentleman kindly translated it into standard Japanese for me. Asakawa looked at the scrap of paper on which it was written. How has your health been since then? You spend all your time playing in the water, monsters are bound to get you. Understand? Be careful of strangers. Next year you're going to give birth to a child. You listen to Granny now. Because you're just a girl. There's no need to worry about local people. That's suspicious. Asakawa read through it twice, carefully, and then looked up. What is this? What does this mean? How should I know? That's what you're going to have to find out. Real? We've only got 4 days left. Well,
why is the rum always gone?
Thank you. Asakawa had many things to do. He didn't know where to start. His nerves were on edge and he began to lash out. Look, I've got one more day to spare than you. You're the point man on this. Act like it. Give it your all. Suddenly, misgivings began to well up in Asakawa's heart. Ryuji could abuse his extra day. If, for example, he came up with 2 guesses as to the nature of the charm, he could tell Asakawa about one and wait for Asakawa's survival or death to tell him which one was right. That single day could turn into a powerful weapon. It doesn't really matter if you live or die, does it, Ryuji? Sitting there calmly like that, laughing. Asakawa wailed, knowing as he did that he was becoming shamefully hysterical. You're talking like a woman now. If you got time to bitch and whine like that, you ought to use your head a bit more. Okay, now honestly, he's so real for that. He is honestly so real for that. Asakawa still glared at him resentfully. I mean, how would you prefer I put it? You're my best friend. I don't want you to die. I'm doing my best. I want you to do your best too. We both have to do our best for each other. Happy now? Midway through his speech, Ryuji's tone suddenly became childish, and he finished with an obscene laugh. As he laughed, the front door opened. Startled, Asakawa leaned over and peered to the kitchen at the entry hall. A young woman was bending over to remove a pair of white pumps. Her hair was cut short, brushing the tops of her ears, and earrings gleamed white. She took her shoes off and raised her gaze, her eyes meeting Asakawa's. Oh, pardon me, I thought the professor was alone, said the woman, covering her mouth with her hand. Her elegant body language and her pure white outfit clashed utterly with the apartment. Her legs below her skirt were slim and willowy, her face slender and intelligent. She looked like a certain female novelist who appeared in TV commercials. Come in. Ryuji's tone had changed. The vulgarity was concealed beneath a newfound dignity. Allow me to introduce you. This is Miss Mai Takano from the philosophy department at Fukuzawa University. She's one of the department's star pupils and always pays close attention to my classes. She's probably the only one who really understands my lectures. This is Kazuyuki Asakawa from the Daily News. He's my best friend. The pause. Mai Takano looked at Asakawa with some surprise. At this point, he still didn't know why she should be surprised. Pleased to meet you, said Mai, with a thrilling little smile and bow. The kind of smile that made any onlooker feel refreshed. Asakawa had never met such a beautiful woman. The fine texture of her skin, the way her eyes glowed, the perfect balance of her figure, not to mention the intelligence, class, and kindness she radiated from within. There was literally nothing to find fault with in this woman. Asakawa shrank back like a frog from a stake. Words failed him. Hey, say something. Ryuji elbowed him in his ribs. Hello, he said finally awkwardly, but his gaze was still transfixed. Professor, were you out last night? Asked Mai gracefully, sliding her stocking feet 2 or 3 steps closer. Actually, Takabayashi and Yagi invited me out with them, so... Now that they were standing next to each other, Asakawa could see that Mai was a good 10 centimeters taller than Ryuji. She probably only weighed half as much as he did, though. I wish you'd tell me if you're not coming home. I waited up for you. Asakawa suddenly returned to his senses. This was the voice he'd spoken to last night. Ah, damn, it wasn't her. This was the woman who answered the phone when he called. Meanwhile, Ryuji was hanging his head like a boy scolded by his mother. Well, never mind, I'll forgive you this time. Here, I brought you something. She held out a paper bag. I wash your underwear for you. I'm going to go straighten up here, too. But you get angry when I move your books. Okay. Oh wow, it's really been so long. Wow. Okay. From this exchange, Asakawa couldn't help but guess the nature of their relationship. It was obvious that they were more than just teacher and student, but lovers as well. On top of that, she'd waited here all night for him last night. Were they that close? He felt the kind of annoyance he sometimes felt when he saw a badly mismatched couple. But this went far beyond that. Everything to do with Ryuji was crazy. There was the love in Ryuji's eyes as he gazed at Mai. He was like a chameleon, changing his expressions, even his speech patterns. For an instant, Asakawa was mad enough to want to open Mai's eyes by exposing Ryuji's crimes. It's nearly lunchtime, Professor. Shall I fix something? Mr. Asakawa, you'll be staying too, won't you? Have you any requests? Oh, poor girl. She's doing wife shit. No. How long is this playlist? Hold on. Oh, it's long enough. Okay. Okay. No, but anyways, poor girl doing wife shit for a man who ain't shit. Stand up, Mai, please. Stand up. Hey, Asukawa looked at Ryuji, uncertain how to respond. Don't be shy. Mine's quite the chef. I'll leave it up to you, Asukawa finally managed to say. Mai immediately left for a nearby market to buy ingredients for lunch. Even after she had gone, Asukawa stared dreamily towards the door. Man, you look like a deer caught in the headlights of a car, said Ryuji with an amused leer. Oh, sorry. Look, we don't have time for you to space out like this. Ryuji slapped Asukawa lightly on the cheek. We have things to talk about while she's gone. You haven't shown Mai the video? What do you think I am? Says the man who committed 3 crimes. The same crimes, mind you. But no. A cursed tape is too far. Fuck Ryuji. Man, fuck Ryuji. I hate him so bad. Yeah, he fucking sucks. Yeah, Ryuji sucks. Yeah, Ryuji sucks. End of story. Okay then, let's get through it. I'll go after we eat. Here we go. Also, I didn't realize that this audio had like a actual page turning audio. So if you hear page turning audio, it's not me. It's the background music I have playing. Okay. Right. Now the first thing you have to find is the antenna. The antenna? You know, the spot where the broadcast originated. He couldn't afford to relax then. On the way home, he'd have to stop at the library and read up on airwaves. Part of him wanted to rush down to the South Hakone now, but he knew it would be quicker for the long run to do some background reading first to get the idea of what he was looking for. The more he knew about the characteristics of airwaves and about how to track down pirate broadcasts, the more options he'd be able to give himself. Also, 1 second. Ah! Oh my god. I'm trying to pull out my damn footrest. Oh, did I get it? Yes, I got it. Okay. There's a mountain of things to be done. Now Asakawa felt distracted, his thoughts somewhere else. He couldn't get her body out of his mind. Why was mine with a guy like Ryuji? He felt both puzzled and angry. Yeah, I'm puzzled too. I am angry too. Like, she clearly has more going for her. And then she's with a piece of shit like him. Hey, are you listening to me? Ryuji's voice brought Asakawa back down to earth. There was a scene in the video with a baby boy, remember? Yes? He chased Mai's image from his mind momentarily and recalled the vision of the newborn, covered in slippery amniotic fluid. But the transition didn't go well. He ended up imagining Mai wet and naked. Buddy! Focus! When I saw that scene, I got a strange sensation in my own hands, almost as if I were holding the baby myself. Sensation. Holding someone. In the arms of his imagination, he was holding first Mai and then the baby boy, in blinding succession. Then, finally, he had it. The feeling he had when watching the video, of holding the infant and then throwing both hands up in the air. This had to be significant. I felt it too. It definitely felt something wet and slippery. You too, huh? So what does it mean? Ryuji got down on all fours, bringing his face up close to the television screen as he played that scene. It lasted about 2 minutes, the baby boy giving his birth cry all the while. They could see a pair of graceful hands beneath the child's head and bottom. Wait a minute, what's this? Ryuji paused the video and began to advance it frame by frame. Advance it a frame at a time. Just for a second, the screen went dark. Watching it at normal speed, it would be so brief as to be hardly noticeable. But watching it over and over, frame by frame, it was possible to pick up moments of total blackness. There it is again, cried Ryuji. For a time, he arched his back like a cat and stared at the screen intently, and then he moved his head back and his eyes darted across the room. He was thinking furiously. Asakawa could tell by the movement of his eyes, but he had no idea what Ryuji was thinking. In all, the screen went dark 33 times during the course of the 2-minute scene. So what? Are you telling me you've been able to figure something out just from this? It's just a glitch in the filming. The video camera was defective. Ryuji ignored Asakawa's comment and began to search through other scenes. They heard footsteps on the outside stairs. Ryuji hurried to push the stop button. Finally, the front door opened and Maya appeared, saying, "I'm back!" The room was once again wrapped in her fragrance. I think she's sus. It was Sunday afternoon, and families with children were playing on the lawn in front of the city library. Some fathers were playing catch with their boys, others were laying on the grass, letting their kids play. It was a beautiful, clear Sunday afternoon in mid-October, and the world seemed blanketed in peace. Okay. Faced with the scene, Asakawa suddenly wanted nothing more than to rush home. He'd spent some time on the 4th floor in the natural science section, boning up on airwaves, and now he was just staring out the window, looking at nothing in particular. All day he found himself drifting off like this. All sorts of thoughts would come to him, without rhyme or reason. He couldn't concentrate, probably because he was impatient. He stood up. He wanted to see the faces of his wife and child, now. He was overcome with the thought, now. He didn't have much time left, time to play with his daughter on the lawn like that. Asakawa got home just before 5. Shizu was making dinner. He could read her bad mood as he stood behind her and watched her slicing vegetables. He knew the reason too, all too well. He finally had a day off, but he left her early that morning, saying only, "I'm going to Ryuji's place." If he didn't look after Yoko once in a while, at least when he had a day off, Shizu tended to feel swamped by the stresses of raising a child. And on top of it off, he'd been with Ryuji. That was the problem. I mean, yeah, he's a piece of shit. Could have just lied to her, but then she wouldn't have been able to contact him in an emergency. There was a call from a realtor, said Shizu, not missing a beat with a knife. What about? He asked if you were thinking about selling. Asakawa had set Yoko on his knee and was reading her a picture book. She most likely didn't understand, but they were hoping that if they exposed her to a lot of words now, then she'd accumulate in her head and then come flowing out like a burst dam when she got to be 2 or so. Did he make a good offer? Ever since land prices had begun to skyrocket, realtors had been trying to get them to sell. 70 million yen. How much is 70 million now I think about it? So 70 million equates to $474,722.71. Wow. Hi, Calamity. I mean, I don't know what menu you're talking about, but go ahead. You're the one that you said you want everything on the menu twice. I don't know what menu you're talking about. Reading log. Your name must be French. So, where was I? Alright, here we go. That was less than before. Still, it was enough to leave quite a bit for Shizu and Yoko, even after they paid off the mortgage. So what did you tell him? Talk about the fillers inside are delicious. So what did you tell him? Wiping her hands on a towel, Shizu finally turned around. I told him my husband wasn't home. That's how it always went. My husband's not home, she'd say, or I'd have to talk with it over with my husband first. Shizu never decided anything on her own. He was afraid she'd have to start soon. What do you think? Maybe it's about time we considered it. You'd have enough to buy a house in the suburbs, with a yard. The realtor said so too. It was a family's modest dream to sell the condo they were living in now and build a big house in the suburbs. Without capital, a dream was all it would ever be. But they did have this one powerful asset, a condo in the heart of the city. They had the means to make the dream come true, and every time they spoke of it now, it was with excitement. It was right there. All they had to do was reach out their hands. And then, could have another baby, too. It was perfectly clear that to Asakawa, just what Shizu was seeing in her mind's eye. A spacious suburban residence with a separate study room for each of their 2 or 3 kids, and a living room large enough that she needed to be embarrassed no matter how many guests drop in. Yoko, on his knee, started to act up. She noticed that her daddy's eyes were strayed from the picture book. That his attention was focused on something beside herself, and she was registering her objections. Asakawa looked at the picture book once more. Long, long ago, Marshy Land was called Marshy Beach because the reed-thick marshes stretched all the way down to the seashore. As he read aloud, Asakawa felt tears well up in his eyes. He wanted to make his wife's dream come true. He really did, but he only had 4 days left. Would his wife be able to cope when he died of unknown causes? She didn't know how fragile her dream was, how soon it would come crashing down. Oh my god. 9 p.m., Shizu and Yoko were asleep as usual. Asakawa was preoccupied by the last thing Ryuji had brought up. Why did he keep replaying this scene with the baby? And what was about that old woman's words? Next year, you're going to have a child. Was there a connection between the baby boy and the child that old woman mentioned? And what about the moments of total blackness? 30 odd times they occurred at varying intervals. Asakawa thought he'd watch the video again to try and confirm this. Yuji had been looking for something specific, no matter how capricious it had seemed at the time. Yuji had great powers of logic, of course, but he also had a finely tuned sense of intuition. Asakawa, on the other hand, specialized in the work of dragging out the truth through painstaking investigation. Asakawa opened the cabinet and picked up the videotape. He went to inserting the video deck, but just at that moment, he noticed something that stayed by his hand. Wait a minute. Something's not right. He wasn't sure what it was, but his sixth sense was telling him something was out of the ordinary. Oh, perhaps we're finally getting somewhere. More and more, he was sure that there wasn't just imagination. He really had felt something was funny when he touched the tape. Something had changed, ever so slightly. What is it? What's different? His heart was pounding. This is bad. Nothing about this is getting better. Think, man. Try to remember. The last time I watched this, I rewound it. And now the tape's in the middle. About a third of the way through. That's right about where the images end, and it hasn't been rewound. Somebody watched it while I was away. No! Asakawa ran to the bedroom. Shizu and Yoko were asleep, all tangled up together. Asakawa rolled his wife over and shook her by the shoulder. Wake up, Shizu. Wake up. God damn it, Shizu! He kept his voice low, trying not to wake Yoko. She twisted her face to a scowl and tried to squirm away. I said wake up. His voice sounded different from usual. What's wrong? We have to talk. Come on. Shizu! Why would you do this? Damn it, Shizu! Asakawa dragged his wife out of the bed and pulled her into the dining room. Then he held the tape out to her. Did you watch it? Did you watch this? Taken aback by the ferocity of his tone, Shizu could only look back and forth from the tape to her husband's face. Finally, she said, was I not supposed to? Shizu! Oh, damn it! She didn't watch it all the way through. Oh, Shizu! What are you so mad about? She thought. Here it is Sunday, and you're off somewhere, and I'm bored, and then there was a tape you and Ryuji were whispering over. So I pulled it out, but it wasn't even interesting. Probably just something the boys in the office cooked up anyway. Shizu remained silent, only talking in the back of her mind. There's no call for you to get so upset about. For the first time in his married life, Asakawa felt the desire to hit his wife. Oh, shit! You idiot! But somehow he managed to resist the urge and just stood there, fist clenched. Calm down and think. It's your own fault. You shouldn't have left it where she could see it. Shizu never opened mail addressed to him. He figured it was safe just to leave the tape in the cabinet. Why didn't I hide it? After all, she came to the room while Ryuji and I were watching it. Of course she'd be curious about it. I was wrong not to hide it. I'm sorry, Shizu mumbled discontentedly. When did you watch it? Asakawa's voice shook. This morning. Really? Shizu had no way of knowing how important it was to know exactly when she had watched it. She nodded curtly. What time? Why do you ask? Just tell me. Asakawa's hand started to move again. Around 10:30 maybe. It was right after the Masked Rider ended. Masked Rider? That was a children's show. Yoko was the only one in the family who would have been interested in that. Asakawa fought desperately to keep from collapsing. Now this is very important, so listen to me. While you were watching the video, where was Yoko? Shizu looked back. She was about to burst into tears. On my lap. Oh, shit. On my lap. Yoko too? You're saying both of you watched this video? She was just watching the screen flicker. She didn't understand it. Shut up, that doesn't matter. This was no longer just a matter of destroying his wife's dream of the house in the suburbs. His entire family was threatened now. They could all perish. Shizu! Girl! No! Damn it! Oh! They'd all die an utterly meaningless death. As she observed her husband's anger, fear, and despair, Shizu began to realize the seriousness of the situation. Hey, that was just a joke, right? She recalled the words at the end of the video. At the time, she dismissed them as a ridiculous prank. They couldn't be real, but what about the way her husband was acting? It's not for real, right? Right? Asakawa couldn't respond. He merely shook his head. Then he was filled with the tenderness for the one who now shared his fate. Oh my god! Shizu! Oh my god. Okay. This chapter is a bit hefty, so I don't think I'd be able to get through it tonight. Oh my god. Okay. Interesting development. Oh my god. So. Shizu. Oh no. Oh god. I can't wait. Oh my god, Shizu, why would you do this? Oh my god. Oh my god. So, I wonder, is anybody else still on right now? Okay, let's see. Let's see. Yeah. Oh my god. All right. Oh, oh my god. You know what? Let's leave it like that. All right. I will be going now. Damn it! I gotta wait till next week. Okay, well, I hope you guys enjoyed as much as I did. And that shit got me, so I cannot wait till next week. So, good night, good morning, good afternoon, or whenever you're watching this. I hope I can see you all next week to continue this bullshittery of the ring. All right. And since all right, so we will also be writing into Knack. So be mindful, be pleasant. So good night, and I'll see you later. Bye.